Ladies and gentlemen, good evening. Good evening and welcome to a very special part of a terrifically important evening and weekend at the University of North Carolina at Asheville. Before we begin our formal dinner ceremonies, today's a special day in another way at the university. Today at noon, give or take a few minutes, on Reed Plaza, we introduced the University of North Carolina, Asheville alma mater. And tonight, Chuck Taft and the UNC Asheville Community Chorus will grace us by opening the evening with Your Alma Mater. And I think what's very nice about this is not only was the beautiful music prepared by Jess Paget, but the words, which mean so much to us, came from a collaboration of students and faculty and alumni and staff. And I find it very moving. And I think every time we come together as community to celebrate, we should open with the alma mater. Chuck?
Good evening. We're very pleased to be here tonight to present this alma mater to you all. Chuck Taft will play it through the first time. The second time the chorus will sing, and the third time you are invited to join us. So here's our alma mater.
You're going to be hearing that quite a bit in the years to come. And we're very, very proud of it, and many thanks to all of those who work so hard to make it a reality. Before we begin dinner this evening, I'd like to take a moment and introduce several people who are very special to all of us and to this university. First, Mr. and Mrs. Vern Rhodes, whom we will be honoring in a few moments. Mr. Zolly Stevenson, who we will be honoring as our distinguished alumnus. And of course, Mrs. Aileen Highsmith. And as I listened to that alma mater, Mrs. Highsmith, I think Dr. Highsmith taught us that greatness would be our way, and that's the track we're taking. In addition, I'd like to introduce Mrs. Alice Witchell, the former Dean of Women, Mr. Joe Parsons, the former Dean of Students, Mr. Bob Peterson, the 1999 Distinguished Alumnus, and his wife Barbara, Mr. Wayne McDevitt, recipient of the 1998 Distinguished Alumnus Award and Chancellor's Medallion, and currently the Vice Chancellor for Administration at this university. Coach Herb Coleman, who coached football, basketball, and baseball at Asheville Biltmore College and is and always will be an honorary member of the Alumni Board. And Ms. Julie Shaddix, the President of the Student Government Association, and a special welcome to all international students who join us this evening. The students brought these flags which adorn this room, and ladies and gentlemen, at this time in our world, I think it's wonderful when we come together and celebrate all flags and all people. And if I might call upon a very distinguished member of our faculty, Professor Bill Spellman, who is the NEH Distinguished Professor of Humanities. Professor Spellman represents, I believe, everything that this great faculty stands for. He is an extraordinary scholar, author, an amazing teacher, and a terrific, terrific proponent of students. And I'd like to ask Professor Spellman to step forward and introduce some very, very special guests who have joined us today.
Thank you, Jim. Each year, the humanities program at UNCA puts together a series of faculty development workshops. This year, we've changed the nature of these workshops. They are faculty, student, and alumni development workshops. And this weekend, we have a group of scholars from a number of institutions in the East, the Southeast, who have joined us for a workshop on understanding Africa. And I'd just like to introduce these individuals to you, and if they'd raise their hands and be recognized. Dr. Carolyn Fleur-Loban from Rhode Island College. Dr. Loban will be speaking tomorrow on women in Islamic Africa. Dr. Richard Loban from Rhode Island College. Dr. Richard Loban will be talking about ancient African civilization, particularly Nubia, tomorrow. Dr. Nuru Akinyemi from Kennesaw State College outside of Atlanta. Nuru and I traveled to India this past summer, and he's become a wonderful resource for UNCA, for our students, and for me in particular. Dr. Muhammad Al-Fabah from the College of Charleston, who just spoke on the medieval epic Sundiata for the group. And Dr. Kwame Panford from Northeastern University in Boston, who flew in last night and spoke earlier this afternoon on Africa and the new international economic order. Let me please invite all of you, if you're free tomorrow, to come to the seminar. We will be meeting in the Red Oak Room of the Ramsey Library. We begin at 9 a.m. And at lunchtime, at 12:45, we'll be down in the Highsmith Center, the old cafeteria, the lounge, where we'll be having a traditional West African lunch, and there'll be a performance group, Ballet Waraba, that will be entertaining the group. So please, if you are free tomorrow, you're more than welcome to join us. It's a delight to see everyone here tonight, and I want to thank Jim for supporting humanities and our students and these faculty development initiatives. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. And now, if we might, before dinner, have a special recognition. There are so many individuals in the history of this university who helped to shape what we stand for, who helped to set the standard against which all of us are measured. And it is our hope that we will begin this year a tradition that will continue into the future, in which we will honor those who made such a difference in the history of this university. And if I might, in a very special way, begin that tradition by honoring the late Vern Rhodes, Sr., such a good friend to so many in this room and such an extraordinary part of the history of this university. This Founders Day, the university does honor the late Vern Rhodes, Sr., for whom the UNC Asheville Science Building is named. Mr. Rhodes was a pioneer forester, visionary leader, and builder of Asheville and West North Carolina in the first 60 years of the 20th century. He was involved in many vital activities of the time that have quite literally shaped this region and the city as we know it today. One of the first scientific foresters in North Carolina, he played an important role in the formation and administration of Pisgah National Forest, and later in the creation of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. He was a business and civic leader after his marriage in 1926 to prominent Ashevillean Dorothea Johnston Weaver. Mr. Rhodes came here from his native Missouri with the direct purpose of attending Dr. Carl Schink's Biltmore Forest School, the first forestry school in America. According to Mr. Rhodes' own account, he was convalescing from typhoid when his brother sent him Dr. Schink's catalog of the school. He said, "I read it from cover to cover, not once but many times. I had not heard of forestry before, but this outline of the life of a forester and the possibilities of a career in a pioneer profession fired my imagination as nothing else had ever done to that moment. Then and there, I decided that when I regained my strength, I should study at Biltmore." After graduating in 1906 with a degree as a forest engineer, Vern Rhodes worked as a U.S. Forest Examiner, valuing the timberland that would make up the Pisgah National Forest. He was named the first supervisor of the Pisgah National Forest in 1915 and held that position for 10 years. He was appointed Executive Secretary of the North Carolina Park Commission in charge of buying land for the Great Smokies Mountain National Park. The project took 5 years of persistent effort to acquire the acreage for what Mr. Rhodes called, and I quote, "one of the greatest attractions in our southern Appalachian scenic wonderland," unquote. In Asheville, he served on bank, government, corporate, and community boards until he was in his 80s. Vern Rhodes' mark is everywhere around us, not only on our science building, but on our main access road, a scholarship fund, and the botanical gardens. Besides his family, perhaps Mr. Rhodes' most personally satisfying legacy is the Cradle of Forestry in America Museum and Visitor Center at the Pink Beds. He worked tirelessly to see this project through on the site of his own introduction to the profession of forestry and to Western North Carolina. Mr. Rhodes and the Biltmore School alumni were instrumental in working with the Forest Service in the 1960s to establish this wonderful museum that displays so effectively the rich history of our region, including Dr. Schink's original schoolhouse. Mr. Rhodes raised the funds to restore that building. When Vern Rhodes passed away in January 1969, the Asheville Citizen-Times carried an editorial that said he had a quality of gentleness that belied his strength of purpose and a quiet generosity that masked his essential firmness. His good works were recognized by a wide circle of friends, rich and poor, high and low, who revered him. Here truly was a Christian gentleman, always courteous, always kind, always thoughtful of others. He was one of the most beloved men who has lived in Asheville. The 1957 book, The Biltmore Immortals, which contains autobiographies of the alumni of the Biltmore Forestry School, reportedly was held up in publication until Mr. Rhodes made his contribution to the work. A classmate wrote, "I met many a fine forester, but when I met and did business with Supervisor Rhodes, I encountered a gentleman of wisdom, intelligence, and fairness, one of God's noblemen. Forestry happenings of importance taking place in North Carolina have usually shown that Vern Rhodes has been consulted." At the University of North Carolina at Asheville, we are proud to have one of our first buildings named for this man whose important legacy to the state and region also continues in his 3 children and their family. They are Vern Rhodes, Jr. of Asheville and his wife, Sally, William Weaver Rhodes and his wife, Elizabeth, and daughter, and Ann Johnston Rhodes Farquharson of Toronto and her late husband, Robert, and their 3 children and 5 great-grandchildren. Ladies and gentlemen, in the tribute to Vern Rhodes Sr., the quality of gentleness that belied his strength of purpose and quiet generosity that masked his essential firmness. Always courteous, always kind, always thoughtful of others. What better role model for our students? What better role model for all of us? Vern and Sally, it's a privilege to have you here tonight. Vern, as we honor your father, it's a privilege always to have you here. You are part of our family as he was. And it's my privilege as Chancellor to ask you to stand and receive the applause of all your good friends. Ladies and gentlemen, let us enjoy dinner, and we'll be back in a little bit. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to welcome you again this evening to our Founders Day dinner, the 5th annual, celebrating the 74th anniversary of our founding. My name is Kevin Frazier. I have the privilege of serving for the 2nd term as president of the UNC Asheville Alumni Association, and also have the privilege to serve as the director of student life on the staff here at UNC Asheville. It is such a pleasure for me to be here this evening as we celebrate our 74th anniversary of our university's founding. Over the years, I have come to love to tell the stories of UNCA's history. From the original decision to create a tuition-free 2-year college in 1927, to the creation of the university's Innovative Humanities program in the 1960s, to the development of the concept of a public liberal arts college in the 1980s, to our current efforts to become the nation's truly first intergenerational university. Ours is a story of strong leaders who, even during times of great adversity, stayed true to their vision to create the outstanding university that we have today. This year marks many milestones in UNC Asheville's history. In addition to celebrating the 74th anniversary of our founding, we also mark the 40th anniversary of the coming of our first African-American student, Francine Delaney, as well as the 40th anniversary of the institution's move to our present campus. Amazingly, it took 33 years and 4 campuses for UNC Asheville, its predecessor institution Asheville Biltmore, to find a permanent home. It was due to the visionary leadership of men such as President Glenn Bushy and the members of Asheville Biltmore's Board of Trustees that we moved off the mountain. And it was thanks to the generosity of Landon Roberts, Vern and Dorothea Rhodes, and others who made the land affordable so that the college was able to relocate to the beautiful valley we're in today, looking toward Mount Pisgah and the beautiful Blue Ridge. In addition to the citizens, administrators, and faculty who have shaped this glorious university, there are more than 10,000 alumni who have left their imprint on UNC Asheville. In 1994, the Board of Directors of the UNC Asheville Alumni Association decided that the time had come to recognize those men and women who, as students and graduates, have shaped our university and the greater community. In the spring of 1995, the Distinguished Alumnus Award was given to its first recipient posthumously to Roy A. Taylor. Representative Taylor was a member and valedictorian of the college's first graduating class in 1929. He went on to serve for more than 3 decades as a public servant in both local, state, and federal positions. He was instrumental in the creation of the community college system and a key player in the addition of Asheville-Biltmore College to the University of North Carolina system as the University of North Carolina at Asheville. Before his death, he received both the Chancellor's Medallion and an honorary doctorate from his alma mater. It was unfortunate that he was unable to receive this award before his passing, but in light of the great contributions to the university he made, it seemed only appropriate to name the Distinguished Alumnus Award in his honor. Since 1995, the award has been bestowed upon 5 other recipients. The second award went to Dr. Thomas Reynolds, class of 1938, son of our founder, A.C. Reynolds, mathematician, and dear friend of UNC Asheville. In 1997, the award was given to noted television journalist Michael Cogdell, class of 1984, and in 1998, it went to well-noted North Carolina public servant Wayne McDavid, class of 1975, who now serves as our university's Vice Chancellor for Administration and Finance. The award was then presented to one of Asheville's most active citizens, Bob Peterson, class of 1957, for his numerous contributions to Asheville. And last year, we presented our first Distinguished Alumna Award to Wilma Dykeman, noted author and social activist. This year's recipient follows in the footsteps of these great figures in our university's history. Dr. Zollie Stevenson, Jr. entered UNC Asheville in the fall of 1971. During his 4 years, Zollie was a model student leader. Besides serving as a residential proctor for the Governor's Village, he also served as editor of the school paper, then known as the Ridge Runner, and later as student body president. Zollie went on to North Carolina A&T University, where he received his master's in science, and later to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill, where he received his PhD. For many years, Zollie has been a leader in education and community service. He has been a member of Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity, the nation's first Greek letter fraternity for African American men, for many years. He has served on the Alpha's national staff for the past 5 years and recently concluded a stint as the fraternity's administrative director. Today, he serves as the director of Alpha Phi Alpha's Education Foundation. Zollie's contributions to education are numerous and include service on the Academic Advisory Board of the Thurgood Marshall Scholarship Foundation and the editorial board of the Journal of Negro Education. Today, Zollie is a senior program specialist in the Office of Elementary and Secondary Education at the U.S. Department of Education in Washington, where he has been a key figure in the department's work with states and their assessment and systems standards. I've known Zollie for many years, and I've known of him for many more. Several of his classmates, not the least of which was D. James, has told me many great stories of Zollie over the years. In the years that I have known Zollie, I have become friends with a man of great principle and strong conviction, who understands well the importance of public instruction to our nation's future. I have also found a leader who does not sit by making suggestions, but who is willing to roll up his sleeves when called to duty. In this past year alone, he and Gerard Moses of the class of 95 have been working to build a new Black alumni chapter whose focus is not on alumni per se, as much as it is on helping African American students and extending the UNCA Asheville experience to them in better ways. Without question, Zollie's support for our alma mater is focused on providing students the best education possible. Zollie's nomination came with a legion of letters supporting his selection because so many at UNC Asheville have been touched by his leadership in both the university as a student and alumnus and in the national community through his outstanding work in public instruction. Jim, would you join me? And Zollie, would you join us? Thus, it is with great pleasure that this year we present the Roy A. Taylor Distinguished Alumnus Award to Dr. Zollie J. Stevenson.
That's a temporary gift, Jim. Well, this is an auspicious occasion for me. It's an honor that I never anticipated. You usually, when you're involved in community service and education and you serve in leadership roles, at some point along the way that someone's very likely going to recognize you and present a certificate or a plaque to put on the wall. But, when you serve in those roles, you sort of have that on your radar screen. You know at some point in time that may happen. But I tell you, when I received the telephone call from Kevin Frazier indicating that I was the selectee for 2001, I asked him several times, "Are you sure that they selected the right person, that there wasn't a mistake?" I just feel in many ways that my contributions to UNC Asheville are in their infancy. I served in a number of capacities when I was a student, and I guess that was one of the things that sustained me during the time that I was here. It kept me very busy. It kept me out of trouble because I was involved with editing a campus newspaper and then working in a residence hall and dealing with all the things that happen in residence halls, particularly those that happen after curfew. So it was a very busy life for me and a very busy time. And so to receive an honor of this magnitude at this time is really significant to me and is one of those things that I will hold very dear to my heart, I will treasure. Now, how many of you remember Elizabeth Taylor? You remember Elizabeth Taylor, the beautiful actress Elizabeth Taylor? Well, she is quoted as saying to her eighth husband, when he was talking about their marriage and their relationship, and looking forward to a long time, she said, "Well, don't worry, I won't keep you long." And so I share the same thing with you. There are a couple of things that I would like to say this evening, but I'm not going to keep you long, okay? First of all, there are several people that I must thank, and to have received the emails and the notes from classmates, and you see, we didn't think of Wayne McDivitt and Jim Shields and I are part of the class of 75. But when you were at UNCA, you didn't really consider yourself just in the class that you were in. I mean, it was sort of like a range, and the range was like 4 or 5 years, depending on how long it took some of our classmates to get through. But and so I've gotten so many emails from people who were excited about this award for me, and it's just an amazing thing to me to have received that type of feedback and response. But I didn't do this. I didn't come this far by myself. My family's not here this evening, but they made sure that we were recording this so that they could see it and to have this as a part of their records. But there are people such as Alice Wutchell, who I must acknowledge, and Joe Parsons, and Tom Deason's not here tonight, who in the student services life were very important to me in providing the support and guidance that people in student services provide. But it was more than that. It wasn't just because they were administrators serving in those roles. They had a genuine interest in concern and care for the students in the university, and they showed that in the way that they interacted with us. Mary Gilpin and Pete Gilpin are two names that I would mention also who, in the residence hall and the residence life were very important to just talking to us about the things that were going on and helping us to understand why things were the way that they were. And then I had a wonderful faculty advisor who is here this evening, and I don't see him enough, but William Bruce, who served as my advisor in the psychology department, I must acknowledge this evening. And you always have a big brother and a big sister when you're in a university setting. You identify someone that can help you along and that you can go to when you're dealing with just the day-to-day kinds of things. And when you haven't seen your mama and you haven't seen your daddy, and you need someone that you want to talk to. And I had that in Deborah and Charles James, who have been my friends for 30 years. Can you believe it? 30 years since we started here. Another thing that I wanted to highlight was how important I felt my education was. And Mary told me I didn't have a long time to talk, but I have to talk about some things, Mary. I want to talk about the humanities program. And I remember as a freshman saying, oh, God. 16 hours of humanities with lecture in the humanities lecture hall, and then you had to actually sit in a classroom with 5 to 10 of your classmates, which was about the average, and actually discuss Plato's Republic and any of the other things that we talked about during that time. And I remember, though I loved history and the study of cultural things and the understanding of cultural things, I looked upon that with some trepidation. But let me tell you something, that of all the experiences, the academic experiences that I've had at UNC Asheville during the time that I was here and since, I think the thing that developed me the most in terms of my ability to write and to think, to be able to think on my feet in settings where people put you on, put you in a position where you have to respond, it was the humanities program. Having the opportunity to work in those small group settings and to actually have Richard Reed, who was then chairman of the literature department, ask me some difficult question from a perspective, a philosophical question, when I was just beginning to study philosophy and to understand those things very deeply. And to have Ellis Shorb and Robert Trullinger and faculty members such as those that provided guidance to that program. And then I have to reference Arnold Wingro and Theater UNC Asheville because I learned to direct, I learned to act, and I even had the opportunity, if you can believe this, to sing in a production, a UNCA production. Now, hopefully there are no tapes of that. I just want you to understand how important those pieces are, and I hope that we always have a humanities program, because even though students might not appreciate it, all aspects of it at the time, it does have a benefit, and it does prepare you for being able to go out in the world and to stand up and talk before audiences such as this audience, and to be able to do the things that one would want to on their feet when engaging in discourse. So Kevin took part of my thunder because I also wanted to acknowledge another person whose shoulders I stand, and that was Beatrice Francine Delaney, who was the first African American. She was one of the three African American students who enrolled here in 1961. And Aileen Highsmith, I was reading the University of North Carolina at Asheville, the history that was written by Chancellor Highsmith, who was also very instrumental in providing guidance and support. And we fought sometimes, but it worked out in the long run. But there's a quote on page 72 regarding Francine, and I'm going to read this to you because I think it's important that we understand. University of Mississippi had its James Meredith, and the University of Alabama had their students, and the University of Georgia. We had Beatrice Francine Delaney, and this is a quote. Another 1966 honors graduate was Beatrice Francine Delaney, who was one of the first 3 black students to enroll at Asheville Biltmore College in September 1961. The junior college graduate had waited 2 years to enroll as a member of the institution's first junior class, and she graduated with the first senior class 2 years later with honors. I think it's important that we remember that part of our history as well, and that we make sure that the students who are here now understand that important aspect of how we've come to be where we are today. So without further ado, I thank you profusely. I'm surprised I'm still standing here. I haven't blacked out or anything, but this is really a high honor, and I do thank those who selected me for it, for their consideration, and I hope that I will always be able to hold UNCA high. Thank you.
Thank you, Zolly. This evening, we're very pleased to have remarks from, I guess you're still new, Brenda. You're still new. I keep telling them I'm still new, too, so. Brenda Green, who is Special Assistant to the Chancellor for Diversity and Minority Affairs, will speak to us tonight. Brenda is one of the most respected educators in the country who has in the field of multicultural education. She joined the university in the summer of 2000. She came to UNC Asheville from Ball State University in Muncie, Indiana, where she was director of the Office of Multicultural Affairs. She holds a PhD in Higher Education Administration from Iowa State, a Master's of Arts in Counseling from Xavier, and a Bachelor's of Arts from Spelman College in Atlanta. She's a native of Atlanta, and it is an interesting footnote that she grew up in the Ebenezer Baptist Church of Atlanta, which was pastored by the Reverend Martin Luther King Sr. I'm very pleased Brenda's part of our team because she's a leader. She's a leader and she's a champion on an issue that's central, has to be central, must be central to who we are as a liberal arts institution. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Brenda Green.
Thank you, Chancellor Mullen. Do I need to pull this down? How is that? Is that better? All right. I'd like to first recognize and probably put my stamp of approval, such as it is, on the wonderful people who are sitting here that I've heard about so far. I've had the pleasure of sitting at the table with the Rhodes, and that's been really enlightening because I don't know a lot about the buildings yet. I know the names, but I don't know the history behind the buildings. I'm very happy when Zolly came in. I was looking at him strangely because we had met earlier, and I was confused. I was trying to bring back his name to my mind, and I couldn't. I knew his face, but I couldn't get his name to come up. So I was very happy to look on the program, and it came back to me. And I'd like to add my congratulations also, Zolly. However, speaking of stealing thunder, the first thing I say to you probably is going to fall a little flat at the end because Zolly stole my punchline, which was the Elizabeth Taylor punchline. Believe it or not, I had a premonition that somebody was going to do that. I really did, but I was like, that will never happen. That will never happen. But it did. But I'd like to say I am very pleased to be here tonight with the alumni who are our special guests, faculty, and I was happy to have the students here to hear a little of what's going on, and with community supporters, faculty, and staff. You know, Founders Celebrations are times when we reminisce about the old days, and whether it's a formal gathering such as this or an informal one, we begin to embellish the stories, take forever to tell them, and rarely do they resemble the actual act. But everybody leaves the event thinking that fun was had by all. I'm going to try to not keep you long and share some thoughts that I have on alumni with you. I would like to take a few minutes of your time to reflect on our honored guest, who I really consider our alumni. In preparation for tonight, I decided to heed the suggestion of my undergraduate speech teacher. I think they're called communications teachers now, but I remember that Dr. Perlman told me, and I'm paraphrasing this, at one time I'm sure that I would have been able to quote it, but I'm paraphrasing it now. He would say, "Miss Green, before you do anything, you need to know what it is you're talking about. Always research your topic. So go look up the term or terms, and don't forget to let your audience in on what you're planning to talk about. It's one way to really develop a good speech. So following Dr. Perlman's advice, I picked up my tattered but trusty Webster's Dictionary that stays by my computer, and I looked up the term alumni. Nothing. I was somewhat perplexed because I knew it was a word. But I kept looking, and to my surprise, I ran into the word alum, which I had always thought was the vernacular, so I didn't expect to find it in the dictionary. But it isn't. It isn't the vernacular. It's actually a form. But that still was no definition. But there was a reference, and it referred me to the word alumnus. And the definition simply says, a person, especially a man, who is a graduate or former student of a college or university. About this time in the process, I'm beginning to question the wisdom of following Dr. Perlman's advice, because once the Latin was disposed of, I don't know anyone who would not have given me that definition. But still feeling the need to be sure and to be clear about what I was talking about, I pulled out my 5-pound, my 5-pound first of 3 editions of the Webster's International Dictionary that was given to me by the Britannica Company, and I looked again for the word alum or alumni. And what I found was this. I found that in addition to being a graduate, another characteristic of an alum is that she or he is a contributor, as in a member of an organization, an employee in an office, or an inmate in a penitentiary. Needless to say, the last reference was news to me. Duly noted, I purged it from my short-term memory and concentrated on the portions that preceded it. To summarize both editions of Webster, an alum is a graduate and a contributor. One might say with some degree of certainty that Webster, at some time in its history, had on staff a director of development posing as a lexicographer. But back to the definition. An alum is a graduate and a contributor. At first glance, I'm sure many of us would agree with this basic definition. But tonight, I would like to add another perspective. I would like to contend that the two terms, graduate and contributor, represent states of development in the relationship between a person and his or her institution. If the definition is to ring true, there is a behavioral adjustment that takes place in order for a graduate to become a contributor, to become an alum. Just as there is a point at which the student becomes the graduate. Someone who makes a contribution to his or her alma mater then is not only a graduate but a contributor. Any university fundraiser worth his or her pay will tell you that if they get contributions from a first-year graduate, it's gravy. Why? Because usually a recent graduate hasn't had a chance to really come to value his or her college experience enough to make a contribution. That comes later in a graduate's development. I can surely speak for myself. I remember almost vividly receiving my first letter from the development office of Spelman College about 3 or 4 months after I graduated. It congratulated me on my accomplishment and reminded me of my relationship to the college. It asked for a contribution of $75. Now you can really approximately figure out my age based on that request. Surely, $75 could not be considered a serious baseline contribution from an alum today. $75 might buy a student a small book. So what I did was I also remembered that I was bemused and indignant as a result of receiving this letter. I was still smarting from some unfair treatment I felt I received from a professor who kept me from a 4.0 semester simply because she had already given her quota of A's by the time she reached my name on the roll, and another who lowered my grade for an equally ludicrous reason. I balled the letter up and threw it joyously in the wastebasket, feeling that retribution had been served. It became an annual ritual. Over the years, I mellowed and learned to value my undergraduate experience enormously. My first epiphany came at the hands of a highly successful elementary school teacher. As a new teacher in the Atlanta public school system, I participated in the Master Teacher Program, a program designed to allow new teachers the opportunity to observe master teachers at work, in the hope that some of their expertise and zeal would rub off. When I arrived on my first site and was introduced to my master teacher as a Spelman graduate, she exclaimed, "You probably already know what I have to show," alluding to Spelman's strong reputation as an institution with an equally strong teacher education program. Although I kept my composure, I was deeply saddened that this master teacher would defer to me, a mere second-year teacher. It is my belief, and I'm sure that if there are teachers in this room right now, they will also agree, that to become a good teacher takes a lot of time and takes more time than 2 years in the trenches, and that to be designated a master teacher by your school system means one of two things. You were either born to teach, or you worked awfully hard to arrive at that status. So though taken aback by her remark, a light also went on in my head that said, "You graduated from an institution held in high regard." Now, this was not the first time that I had heard this I had not had this pass through my head. Quite the contrary. Because if you grew up in Atlanta, Georgia, in the housing projects bordering the Atlanta University Center, which includes Spelman College, and if one of your earliest teaching role models was Willie Christine King, a Spelman graduate and the sister of M.L. King, Jr., and if you attended Ebenezer Baptist Church, then you knew that Spelman College was the best thing since sliced bread, because that's what everybody told you. But you have to know that I was very much alive in the 60s, so this brand of elitism was not a part of my personal repertoire. I'm the teacher who wore natural on the weekend and straightened her hair on Sunday night because her principal didn't allow a natural in her building. So I'm all about the masses and the oppressed, up and down the road, down with the system. This is the person they're selling this to. Nevertheless, you cannot unring the bell. So I did hear, and I did remember the words of the master teacher. And it was the beginning of my journey from graduate to alum. After paying off my grad school student loans, I began to make serious contributions to my undergraduate institution. It became an annual ritual. Again, I ask, what is that? What is it that makes a graduate into an alum? A person who is a graduate, who is a contributor. Tonight, there are two people looking down upon us who bridge the gap from graduate to alum magnificently. One I knew personally, and one many of you knew. If you'll permit, I'll tell you about the one I knew first. His name was Harry Watkins. Harry grew up in a poor, small Midwestern college town during the early 20s. Though poor, he dreamed of being a teacher and worked hard in school. Upon graduation from high school, he realized that he couldn't afford to attend a private college. So he chose to apply to the State Teachers College in his hometown. He was accepted there, and there were no federal loans or grants, so Harry worked in the foundry to earn money for his tuition. In 1933, he became the first African-American male to graduate from what became Ball State Teachers College. Armed and ready to teach, Harry found out that African Americans were not allowed to teach in his hometown and home state. Distraught, Harry told me he rode the rails like a hobo for a little while, but later tired of that and returned to his home state and enrolled in Indiana University to do graduate work. To shorten the story, unfortunately, Harry never got a chance to teach. Instead, he worked for several federal agencies in Washington, D.C., and traveled the world numerous times. I met Harry in his 80th year, when he came to campus to receive the highest award given to an alum at Ball State University, and to dedicate a conference room in his name. You see, Harry had not forgotten the toil, nor the learning experiences of his undergraduate days. He wanted to help poor but promising African American students from Muncie who wanted to attend his alma mater. So he had begun the process of endowing a scholarship. The very few years it was my pleasure to work with Harry revealed that he was always meticulous, impeccably appointed, and stubborn. So it was no surprise to me to learn that he was on campus to also make the final $25,000 installment to his endowment, thereby ending the decade-long project of contributing $100,000 for an endowed scholarship for students. Needless to say, numerous students have benefited from Harry's largesse. Harry was proud of his alma mater and had made what his alma mater had made of itself, and he wanted to provide a way for promising but financially strapped young people to pursue their dreams. Harry is a perfect example of the graduate becoming the alum. Appreciation of your undergraduate experience and finding a way to contribute to the institution in a meaningful way. What can you say about Francine Delaney, except that she seemed to cross the bridge from graduate to alum at warp speed? Like Harry, she was a first. She was the first African American to graduate from Asheville Buncombe College, as UNC was known in the 60s. However, unlike Harry, who gave an enormous amount of money to his alma mater, Francine Delaney gave an enormous amount of herself. From all accounts, she gave freely and tirelessly, not only to UNC Asheville, but to the Asheville community and to the state of North Carolina. It is written that in her career as educator, she held positions ranging from teacher to principal to magnet school coordinator in the Asheville City School System. At the state level, she was influential through her work on the North Carolina Textbook Commission and the North Carolina Testing Commission. Ms. Delaney affected curriculum development also, as the president of the North Carolina Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development. In reading up on Francine Delaney, I was struck by her tenacity and propensity for excellence as an undergraduate. In her senior year, she joined a few of her peers in being selected as Asheville Buncombe College's first students to be listed in Who's Who in American colleges and universities. Quite a feat, especially for an African American during this period in history. Obviously, Francine Delaney's undergraduate experience served her well. So much so that after her graduation, she was compelled to bridge the gap from graduate to alum. She gave back to UNC Asheville by serving on both its foundation board and its board of trustees for many years. Her service to UNC Asheville and the Asheville community moved former UNC Chancellor Schumann to state the following: Francine Delaney was an outstanding UNCA graduate, a light of our Asheville community, and a productive and interested member of our Board of Trustees. We will never be able to replace her loyalty, expertise, and dedication to the university. Clearly, Francine Delaney and Harry Watkins are among the finest examples of what an alum is, as they were both a graduate and a contributor. They are not alone, however. There are alums like John Girton, a highly involved and well-known student throughout his college career, but who struggled to finance his last year of college. Often John had to borrow a classmate's book because he could not afford to purchase his own, despite working long hours in a variety of jobs. A year or two after his graduation, he visited his alma mater and informed me that he had just made a contribution of $500 to the fund in place to help students who find themselves in dire straits. John shared with me that the reason he made the contribution was because he wanted to help any student who might not be able to afford his or her books and to help them avoid the plight that he had found so troubling. Then there's Bradley Shipp, an honors student who took 6 years instead of 4 to graduate because his family's rule was that the first year of college would be financed by the parents, but the remaining years were the responsibility of the child. You figure that out. Not being able to finance his education and unable to qualify for enough financial aid, Bradley was forced to interrupt his college career to earn his tuition. As Bradley struggled to return to school, he remained close to campus, often lending support to his fraternity and attending programs offered by the university. I encountered Bradley not long after his graduation at a university program, and after exchanging pleasantries, the conversation turned serious as Bradley pledged his support to the university, saying, "Dr. Green, if ever you need me for anything, please give me a call. I'll drive up." Bradley knew that we often called on recent alums to participate in programs for students. He offered to share his many talents free to the university. According to Brad, the impetus for his generosity was that he so valued his college experience that he wanted to give something back as he had seen others do. There are other stories that I could share, such as the 2 young men who are architects now and who regularly advise their College of Architecture on how to make their college more welcoming to students of different ethnic backgrounds. They have also admitted that somewhere in their future are plans to return to their alma mater and to diversify the faculty of the College of Architecture. As the above suggests, the interaction of the institution and the student can be the crucible in which an alum is created. So I entreat UNC Asheville to remain diligent in its quest to serve all students. To the assembled alumni, I beseech you to maintain your status as alums, so evident in your presence here tonight. If you can't be a Francine Delaney, be a John or a Bradley. They all gave back to their institutions, each according to his abilities. No matter who you are, I say, you are part of UNC Asheville. You are all valuable to us. You are among the jewels in the UNC Asheville crown. Let's keep UNC Asheville moving forward into this new century by remaining an alum. Thank you. Are these your notes here? Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for this evening. This is a very, very special weekend of the year for us, and this night is an extraordinary one. Tonight we've joined together as a family. We've recognized a man in Vern Rhodes Sr. who, through his love of the land and his integrity of character and purpose, not only shaped this university, he shaped this community, this region, this state. We've honored Solly Stevenson, an individual who's made a profound difference for the good as a student of this university, and now is taking the lessons he learned here and his wonderful, wonderful abilities, and he's making a difference in his country. He's making a difference for young men and women across this country. Yours is a great university. It's worthy of celebration. It's worthy of celebration for who we have been, for what you have built, for what we are today, and it's worthy of celebration for what we are going to be. Our future is bright because it's going to spring from the foundation you built. A strong foundation, a powerful foundation, a meaningful foundation. Our future is bright because of what you've built, and our future is bright because together we're going to make it so. Learning be our watchword, and greatness be our way. Noble alma mater, hear our words of praise, and may we love and honor you until the end of days. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. I bid you good night.